A Senate confirmation hearing meant to evaluate a judicial nominee instead turned into a sharp warning about the future of the rule of law. Senator Alex Padilla confronted Emil Bove, President Trump's nominee to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, over loyalty, power, and one question that continues to haunt American democracy. What message is sent when those who carried out political violence are pardoned? If you want coverage that goes beyond sound bites and actually explains what's at stake, subscribe to the channel now. Padilla opened with a blunt assessment. He argued that recent nomination hearings reveal what he sees as a single litmus test for President Trump's appointees, not experience or commitment to the Constitution, but a willingness to bend or ignore the law in service of the president. Padilla acknowledged that elections have consequences, including judicial appointments, but said those consequences cannot excuse nominees with records he described as vindictive, duplicitous, and abusive of power. The senator traced Bove's career path from his time at the Southern District of New York to his role as one of Donald Trump's personal attorneys to his appointment inside the Justice Department in an acting, unconfirmed capacity. Padilla argued that once inside DOJ, Bove quickly moved to target what he called perceived enemies, particularly prosecutors who handled January 6th cases. Padilla cited reports that Bove labeled the January 6th prosecutions a grave national injustice and directed the FBI to compile a list of everyone involved in those cases. That directive raised alarm among career prosecutors because it suggested retaliation against attorneys who were simply enforcing the law. Padilla also pointed to Bove's role in ordering prosecutors in the Southern District of New York to drop corruption charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams, allegedly in exchange for cooperation with the administration's immigration enforcement agenda. If this context is helping you understand why judicial confirmations matter, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future coverage. Padilla emphasized that concerns about Bove are not limited to Democrats. He quoted conservative legal activists and former Republican staffers who described Bove in harsh terms, including comparisons submitted to the committee likening him to a mafia enforcer. Even the Wall Street Journal editorial board urged senators to scrutinize Bove's judicial temperament and philosophy, raising doubts about whether he possesses either. Padilla responded that Bove's inability to answer mirrored the president's own response when asked the same question. Trump had said it would be too cumbersome to determine the exact number, acknowledging that roughly 1,500 individuals were involved. Padilla argued that the scale alone makes it implausible that those pardons were granted after individualized review. He reminded the committee that dozens of the people pardoned had prior criminal convictions, including for violent offenses such as domestic abuse and sexual crimes. Padilla stressed that these were not abstract hypotheticals, but real people whose records were publicly documented. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel if you want fact-based reporting that connects policy decisions to real-world consequences. Padilla concluded with a quote from a longtime federal prosecutor in Washington, D.C., who warned that the pardons sent a dangerous signal that political violence in pursuit of political goals is acceptable in a modern democracy. Padilla told Bove directly that he had contributed to these actions and asked what message he believes this sends to the American people. Bove attempted to deflect, stating that the president has exclusive constitutional authority to grant pardons. Padilla interrupted and restated the question, emphasizing that he was not asking about constitutional power, but about consequences, public safety, and the rule of law. Bove declined to answer, saying the question called for political views and that judicial ethics rules prevented him from taking a position. Padilla closed by noting that when nominees refuse to engage with the real-world impact of their actions, it raises serious questions about their fitness for lifetime appointments. The exchange ended not with resolution, but with a deeper unease about whether accountability still has a place in American governance. At its core, this hearing was not just about Emil Bove. It was about whether the justice system can remain independent when loyalty is rewarded and accountability is treated as optional.